Guys, it has finally happened. NVIDIA has launched Maxwell. And while all the guys are talking about how great the GTX 980 is, and the 980 this, and the 980 that, I said phooey to all that garbage, and we're gonna go ahead and talk about the GTX 970 first. I want to talk about the GTX 970 first because this is where the value is. I mean, they talked in the keynote at Game 24 all about 980 being great, but the 970 being mind-blowing, and I'm going to have to agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, what I'm holding right here in my hand, well, in this hand, is the GeForce GTX 970 G1 Gaming Windforce Edition from Gigabyte. The card just launched. We've already got a custom PCB and custom cooler option here from Gigabyte. Now, there's a lot of new stuff that came out with Maxwell. There's a lot of new features, all sorts of things. There was a 2-hour keynote on it, and I was glued to the screen during the whole thing, but I am nowhere near versed enough to even talk about all of the specs. I've just recently started being able to play around with it myself. So I'm gonna refer you to Linus Tech Tips video about what's new on the Maxwell platform. I'm going to annotate it and put it up here somewhere for you guys because he's a great source for the details on this. He went to the NVIDIA private conference, was taught all about it. He's much more qualified to talk about that than I am. But I'm going to talk about one thing that is new that I think is very, very worthwhile to consider Maxwell if you're shopping for a GPU today, and that is MFAA, or multi-frame super sampling, or something like that. Basically, it's a much more efficient way of handling anti-aliasing and getting rid of the creepy crawlies, as they call it, or the wigglers, and actually giving you a 4x sample rate of MSAA at a 2x rate for MFAA. Now, other things that are new, we have Flex Display. You can actually put 4 displays on a single card, where previously you can only do 3. This card launches with a DVI-D, a DVI-I, a DisplayPort, HDMI, or actually 3 display ports in an HDMI. What the hell am I talking about? That's pretty important there. But the G1 gaming graphics card is an all custom PCB. It's not a reference design. And that becomes evident immediately because of the 8-pin and 6-pin power plugs on the top. Now, one thing that's also really pretty unique about the 970 is pretty much everybody's shipping them now with a backplate. I mean, normally backplates only came on like the boutique versions of the cards, like the Kingpin or the Classified or whatever, like the SCs and the other lower end models, and certainly not really the 70 series of the previous GeForce cards ever got the backplate treatment, but look at this one. Now, one thing you guys might have noticed already is, good Lord, that card is long. Yeah, it actually is. If you look right there, you can see just how much longer the card is than the PCB. In fact, my finger is where the end of the PCB is. The card extends about another 2 inches past that. So you are going to want to make sure that your card or your case can accommodate this card. Now, the backplate on here is fantastic, as we've already talked about. In fact, the backplate extends out and gives your card some nice rigidity at the end. You've got a machined and brushed aluminum cover on here, and they've changed the fan design slightly. They almost look a lot like the Shark fans that were out for your case fans. They are now, the whole cooler is a matte finish. There's no more of the polished or semi-transparent glossy black fans. It just has a really nice, sleek design. Of course, on the top, you'll find your what the heck? Your SLI bridge. Jeez, you can tell I've been doing some AMD reviews lately. And then on the front, you've got all those connections, as we mentioned, HDMI 3x DisplayPort, DVI-D, and DVI-I. Now, when it comes to the specs of the card, it is a 1329 megahertz GPU 2.0 boost on this card. 1329, that is pretty huge. Now, I'm hearing these cards are massive overclockers, so I can't wait to actually dive in and see how this card performs. Now, one thing that's also new with the Windforce cooler that I think is really neat is the top of the card right here actually lights up. This lights up Gigabyte blue, I guess we'll call it. And so it's no longer just a little font or just a text or whatever you want to call this up here, a logo. It actually lights up, which is really cool. And that When you see a glowing graphics card that's got lights and stuff on it, it just feels like quality. Am I right? Don't we like the bling bling in our cases? I know I sure do. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 copper heat pipes, massive fin array extending way out beyond the edge of the card. And it's got, of course, Gigabyte's patented directional fin airflow thing going on. So it's not only cooling the GPU, it's cooling the VRMs and the RAM around the GPUs as well. Now the back plate's gonna help keep things rigid because it is long, so you don't want it torquing down on your motherboard. But this thing doesn't appear like it's gonna sag. It looks like it's got an awful lot of rigidity to it. It's not twisting or anything else. Yeah, I am literally trying to twist a 970 right now. It's probably making some of you cringe, but hey, the things we reviewers do. All right, so let's go ahead and take this thing, let's plop it in the test system. Let's download the newest 344.11 drivers, and let's see exactly how this thing is performing. I've got a pretty good idea this thing is already gonna be neck and neck with my 780, or one of my 780s. But I got 3 of them, so eat dust, 970.
Transition.
Okay. This is not expected. This card overclocked to 1,524 megahertz. 1,524. Now I had heard that Maxwell was an amazing overclocker, had a ton of headroom. And with this custom PCB, I don't know how that compares to the stock 970, the reference 970, because that's not what I have here. I mean, as we already talked about, the Gigabyte 970 Windforce edition is a custom PCB. Now the stock boost on the card was 1329, as we already mentioned. I got 1524 out of it, just under 200 megahertz overclock. Idle temps 34 degrees, max temps 64 degrees. Now the Valley benchmark score on this was 2720. Now that's unique because that is higher than my GTX 970 was getting with the ACX cooler from EVGA with the stock BIOS. So I wasn't comparing this at all to my BIOS hacked 780 because I would expect those to beat the 970. Unfortunately, I can't put them head to head today because, you know, 3 of them are hooked together in a water loop, and I could technically turn off the other PCIe lanes, but it's a BIOS hacked and stuff. Maybe we'll do that in a later video. So moving on with the benchmark of this card, 3D Mark Firestrike, a 10,891 for the normal score, and a 5,555, yeah, all 5s, that was kind of neat, for the Firestrike Extreme. BF4 Ultra preset with the MFAA, which is the new anti-aliasing technology in Maxwell. We got a 93 frames per second average. Now you guys know I do my averages by taking 10 60-second samples where Fraps will give me an average. It gives me a min, max, and average. I'll take those 10 averages and do it 3 times. So I've got 30 scores. And then I pretty much take those groups of 10, give me the average of each group, then I'm left with 3 numbers, and I take the average of the 3. That's the way that I do it. What I noticed is some of the averages were quite high, like 117 frames per second, 120 frames per second, but none of them ever went below 75 frames per second on the average. So at 1080p, this card is just destroying it. I mean, this is clearly a 1440p card. I wish I had a 1440p panel to actually do that test for you guys, but I don't have a 1440p panel yet. I'm realizing now I have to get one if I'm gonna keep doing these graphics card benchmarks. And then the other test I did was Tomb Raider 94.3. I just kind of did the same tests I had done for the R9 285 so you guys could kind of see how it scales. But this card, keep in mind, guys, this is a $329 base price on the card. I don't know how much some of the other vendors are gonna be. Everyone's kind of determining their pricing right now. But the Gigabyte Windforce 970 overclocks like a champ. It's quiet, 63 degrees Celsius. You can't even hear that thing. It's running behind me right now. It's been running Valley this whole time. And actually, right now, it's sitting at 60 degrees Celsius. It came down. I mean, I know the side panel's open, but yeah, it came down 60 degrees at 1,524 megahertz, and that's actually verified through MSI Afterburner. You can't trust Valley. So the 970, guys, if you are on a budget that says, if you're looking for anything in between the $329 to $350 range, right now, Maxwell is incredibly enticing. And it's definitely someplace you might want to consider dumping your money if you're looking at doing 1080p plus gaming. But 1200p, 1440, this thing is an amazing card. Guys, go check it out. Link is down in the description. As always, thanks for watching today's video. I appreciate your guys' views. Follow on Twitter if you have any questions, Facebook, all that social media stuff. I do the best I can to get to all of you, but there's a ton of you. There's a lot. So, yeah. I can't wait to check out the 980. Everyone was doing 980 benchmarks. I was like, I'm gonna do the 970 because that's gonna be a little bit more mainstream for you guys. Why does Skunkworks feel old now? See you in the next one.